Again, did you watch the last one?
No, not the most recent.
Oh, I didn't laugh at the most
posted
recent.
like 6 hours ago.
Oh.
Was it?
He's my number one fan.
It today. Am I?
I don't know.
I feel like I smile the most when I watch it because I think it's really funny.
But you're not watching other people when they watch it.
That's true. But I doubt somebody laughs as much as I do.
Maybe. Hello!
Hello.
Lark is sick. Clark is not here. So I have 2 guests today. This is Gabe. This is my husband. This is my Bubba man. And this is my friend Josh Rossi. Probably outside of people I'm related to, you're probably the most connected with me.
Your only friend?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. And he's going to ask us questions. And just so the internet knows, me and Gabe disagree on pretty much everything that has to do with Christianity. So we're going to give you very different answers.
All right. Well,
Okay,
I'm also an atheist. So that's...
Oh, I was supposed to say that.
You're supposed to introduce me
agnostic atheist.
Yeah,
not real.
It's both things.
Yeah.
So, my dad is Italian Catholic, and he grew up going to church 7 days a week. And
really?
when he had kids,
he was in school?
Yeah, up until he was in high school.
Yeah.
But he decided that he didn't want us to go to church 7 days a week, or then that quickly turned into, I believe, not at all. So
yeah.
We went to Easter Mass and Christmas and 4 times a year. But I grew up not around anything secular, no religion, no nothing. I don't know anything. So I had questions the first time I watched this episode, and you guys were talking about how Moses goes up to this place and he talks to God, right?
Yeah.
And God talks back. And then you said that Moses changed his mind, changed God's mind about something. And that made me think who was the last person to talk to your God or talk to God?
According to us?
Yeah, sure.
Or as far as the Bible goes?
Well, both. Let's just do both. Who's the last person to communicate with him, and then God communicates back? Because obviously, when people pray, that's talking to him, right?
Probably Paul.
And who's
Apostle
that?
Paul. After Jesus was already dead and back alive and back ascended.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Paul was not one of the disciples when Jesus was alive, but he was a Jew who was very zealous for the Jewish religion and saw Christians as a problem and was actually killing and taking into custody Christians. And he was on his way to go mess with some Christians, and a bright light blinded him, and Jesus spoke to him and said, "Paul, why are you persecuting me? It's hard to kick against the goads." And
Really?
yeah.
So...
But as far as storylines go in the Bible, that's probably the last person in the Bible.
And timeline, when was that?
I don't know how long it was after Jesus died.
Well, there were still other...
Yeah, all the other disciples were still alive.
So it wasn't that long.
But they're probably...
But it was
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, within years.
Within a decade, at least.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, I don't know if they could tell you for sure when it is, because they have historical evidence of Paul existing, but I don't know if they can date it. Yeah.
That was something I didn't know. I was just curious. What would it take for somebody to talk to him now?
He just... I'm not going to say that he doesn't, but he just doesn't seem to a lot. Not that he ever seemed to
I don't know
very
that you could
much.
even say that, because, I mean, you read through the Bible and there's how many instances in all the population of all the people.
Yeah, how many millions of people, and there's maybe 20 in the Bible that they say got to talk to him.
And it's not just that. I mean, it might just be that people aren't necessarily receptive even. There might only be certain people who kind of can.
Mm-hmm. In the science fiction books that C.S. Lewis wrote, which he wrote a lot of theological books, but he wrote a science fiction trilogy. And in the third one, he talked about, he had an idea that I thought was really interesting, and he was talking about how back in the day, in the Old Testament, or maybe even in medieval times, spiritually the world was a lot looser, and there was a lot more contact, and there was a lot more communication. So that's why we look at the Greeks or the Romans and the myths, and we think oh, those crazy people, they just made stuff up. But he was saying maybe they actually were coming into contact with a lot more like spiritual beings, and then for one reason or another, things seem to be a lot more closed off now. I think that's pretty
people
interesting.
became more dependent on themselves, even.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We're able to figure things out for ourselves so that we don't necessarily need any type of spirit or deity to step in
Well,
and
not
be like,
need
no,
to,
don't do
but
that.
just unwilling to.
But in some ways, they were much more dependent on him when it came to like diseases and stuff.
I mean, like, I can completely understand people who are not Christians and are like, I'm gonna let some book tell me what to do that was written how long, you know what I mean? Like, that makes perfect sense to me. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get, like, you don't believe in God, so you're gonna read through this thing and, like, give yourself all these, like, rules. I can just see why they're not into it.
Yeah. But what would it take today for him to speak face to face to someone? There are still lots of people who say that they've had visions.
Yeah.
I mean, you either believe them or you don't. There's no way to verify it.
Right.
Absolutely no way. It's just...
Do you believe it? Like, do you believe he's...
No, those people are crazy.
That's the thing. I think it's completely possible. I think probably some of them he did actually talk to them, but since there's no way to verify when it's real or when they just had some delusion, I don't worry about believing it or not because there's no way to.
Right.
Yeah.
To verify.
I mean, if what they're saying has some value to it, I just take the value and don't worry about the rest.
It could happen, but I'm skeptical because those are usually the people screaming on the street.
Yeah,
like,
or cult
you know,
leaders. Mhm.
Yeah.
Giving people bad names.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
They when you were talking like that first episode you guys did, you were talking about like bigger differences between like you guys and like other
Yeah.
denominations, like
Yeah.
other churches, and one of them was like you didn't believe in a heaven or hell, or like you didn't believe that you went anywhere after you died.
Yeah.
Like, does that mean you don't like believe in heaven or hell? Like that doesn't exist?
I think that God exists in some place that we don't have access to, and it doesn't bother me to call that heaven. But obviously, at this point, I don't have this vision of like, there's the earth and it's flat, and then up in the sky, that's where God lives on a cloud.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Well,
The way I think we see it, or at least I do, is more like, it'd be more like a separate dimension type thing, like there's the area where God is, then there's space, then there's the air.
right.
And in that area, it doesn't necessarily have to be like out further than space or what. I mean, it could be right here. It's just interdimensional. Like there's...
Yeah.
That's something that like I got my degree in like physics, and I was like big studying the like astrophysics, and my possibility to like put a god or like any god into a place was to be like, well, what if they're like a fifth dimensional beings? Like we're in the fourth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Like we live in like space time as a 3D thing.
Yeah, that's more how I
And so
see
I
it.
was wondering if that was something that was possible, like they came to us.
And actually, when, like in the Old Testament, when you're reading the Old Testament and you see the word in English as hell, most of the time that word is Gehenna, and that was like a refuse heap that they kept outside the camp where they would burn waste and dead carcasses and stuff. So even the Bible doesn't necessarily teach that like God is up in the clouds and the demons are down in the fire.
Is that just
under the earth?
like a way that like they pictured it for kids, like make it a little easier to
It got
understand?
into like some like wild Catholic stuff pretty much. I mean, they started making up what they saw. Like you got what is it, like Dante's his story, where there's the different levels of hell.
I'm not good with like history.
And then all of a sudden they come in and they're like, oh
yeah.
yeah, this is the way it is, and there's different hell. Like even the way Satan is like pictured in our culture is not at all how
it's
like the
pop.
Jews
It's like
pictured
pop
it.
religion, like like when they talk about pop psychology.
Yeah, like when you talk about like heaven and hell, people talk about like, oh, going to heaven or whatever, but like the way we see it is the Bible never says anything about people going up to heaven other than like a few examples where we have no information at all.
Well, most of the
about what
references to
happened.
the dead, it just says that they don't know anything and that they're resting. And even when it talks about like God's throne, like when he appeared to like prophets and stuff in the Old Testament on his throne, it wasn't stationary. It's a throne chariot. It moves. It has wheels on it, and there are spirits that sit next to the wheels, and where it goes even the Bible doesn't really paint a picture of like, I don't know, God sitting up on a cloud and the devil being down and.
Well, and as far as what I've
ground.
studied into hell, what I understand it to be is more of being excluded from God. Like, right now we're kind of like in a middle where we have, like access to him, but only like in a certain way. And when he comes back or whatever, then everyone that's saved has access to him all the time. So that's like the best it can be, because there's the one supreme being of all that like knows all, is all powerful, and you've got access to him all the time. Well, the other people then are totally cut off and just kind of destroyed. So it's like the opposite of paradise is the lack of paradise, or being excluded from paradise.
And pretty much all Christians believe, as far as I know, all Christians believe that sooner or later God's going to say enough is enough, and he's going to stop the world.
Right.
And he's going to, and then from that point on, he'll recreate the world, and then he'll dwell there, he'll be there with us. So the difference really isn't how we think the story ends. The difference between us and them is what we think happens to the dead in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the meantime, we just don't think the Bible says anything about, like you said,
Well,
other
some
than
people
maybe
think
like
that-
2 or 3 stories.
Some people think that you'll be burned forever.
Yeah,
eternal damnation, like they talk about,
eternal conscious torment is what it's called. Well, no, we all pretty much all believe in like damnation being eternal, but some people think that you will actually consciously be tormented
and aware of it.
And we don't. Really.
Yeah, we just kind of think you're going to be dead and gone. That's it.
Yeah.
I've never I've attended like quite a few churches, and like whether with things like girlfriends or just friends or something, like more than like a few times, and nobody's ever mentioned like that. I don't know whether it's something that they like set it aside because they don't talk about it because maybe they don't want to think about
Damnation or heaven?
Just hell in general. Like they may like mention it, like like you go to like they
because
may
it's
mention
all
it, but they
speculation.
they never ever talk about it, and then like when I ask them about that, they're like, yeah, like we believe in that, or like that's a thing and it exists over here, but they never like in a sermon or anything like that, or even like go into any detail.
You should have been around like at the turn of the century when all the revivalists were going crazy. You could have heard about hell and brimstone.
Yeah, I forgot to check that on the
all
box
the time.
before I was born.
Yeah. Oh man, and probably also, I mean, it's just it's hard. I feel like it's hard to explain to somebody without them taking it personally. Like it's just.
Well, I mean, the concept is just simply you either win and you get the reward, or game over. I mean, you play games, right?
Exactly.
So that's the essence of it. It's not like the way we see it is not necessarily someone being tortured or whatever. It's just game over. Like as an atheist, you already believe that you die,
right?
And you may believe something might happen, but you don't know,
right?
Well, we think that if you don't live the way you should, then that's just it. That's the end. Like you are judged, and you have the same death you might have had before.
And Christianity is so big that it's like there are some people who, like, honest to goodness, think there's going to be like only 144,000 people out of all humanity. And then there are other people who are like, no, I think, pretty much when God shows up, he'll let everybody at that point decide whether they believe him or not. And everybody's going to be like, oh, well, we see you. So now, some people think everyone.
She thinks a lot more people are going to win than I do.
I don't even think of it as winning. But I'm not competitive or aggressive like you.
She's in that culture where everybody gets the participation trophy.
Yeah.
Like in Christianity.
There's a lot more of us.
You were here, you lived.
Yeah.
You can come with us.
Yeah.
I think that's what she wants to happen.
Well, the thing of it too is that, and I mean, people might disagree with me, but the concept of Jesus being what saves us, on the one hand, it's very simple. On the other hand, it is not clear exactly how that works. Like, it is also a mystery. Like, and there are like so many different theories about like, well, why did Jesus have to die? What did Jesus's death actually mean? Like, what actually? Christians don't agree on all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway. Next question.
That was like the bigger one, because that was like my first okay, like you were talking about how like people talk to him and how like he like talked back and like changed his mind, like you actually had like a two-way conversation. Mm-hmm. From my understanding, for like the most part, which isn't very good understanding, is that it was mostly just like always just a one-way conversation. Like he sent a message, and then people like received it and like whether they like interpreted it or then like spread it out, wrote it down. They did.
I think it's pretty ballsy to argue in general.
Yeah. And even in the Moses is a whole different story. Like Moses would go into a tent and he would talk to God face to face, and when he came back out, being in the presence of God would illuminate his skin would glow.
Yeah.
Like he was, but there aren't a lot of people in the Bible. Like, I mean, Moses was born for a very particular time.
So he had a very like special, unique.
Very,
role.
very. I mean, he had the job of leading Israel out of Egypt, which is a very big job because that ended up being a real life like type or symbol of all of humanity to understand how you come out of sin into the presence of God. Like,
and even he got in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that it's not like that was a very. I mean, if you want to talk about like the biggest figures in the Bible, it probably goes Jesus, Moses. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
The other one, I had this conversation actually recently with somebody, and this was like the first time they like brought up not a counterpoint. We were talking about like Noah and Noah's Ark, and they were talking about like because a TV show was on and like looking for Noah's Ark and like finding it and all that. Did they find it and what goes on? And then she had told me that she just thinks that it's a story, like it never happened. Like it's just a story, like a metaphor, like that they use to like help teach people about things. I was curious what you guys thought.
It doesn't matter to me.
You don't.
I know, I'm so bad at
Well, no, that's
This
fine.
is why Lark gets on me about like systematic theology and stuff. It's just like how, there are Christians who believe the earth there are Christians who think you have to believe the Bible and it says that God made the earth in 7 days. And then there are Christians who believe that God used evolution to create the world. I have no problem believing God could create the world in 7 days. I have no problem believing God could flood the entire earth because I think God could do whatever he wants with the earth. So it's not like I think it's impossible, but the value of the story to me is not that it literally happened.
Right.
The value of the story is what it shows about like the character of humanity and the character of God. So it doesn't matter a whole lot to me one way or the other.
Fine. Like I heard somebody say like, oh, like we don't actually like because most people like when they talk about it, they are either passionate one way or the other, like it happened or it didn't happen, and nobody's ever told me like it was like a story.
I'm kind of with her on that. Like it wouldn't surprise me either way, and it doesn't really matter because when you read the Bible, I mean, what you're supposed to get from it is what you're supposed to get from it. I mean, you don't look at it. If you look at it like, well, this, and this are absolute like facts, and like we're gonna take everything completely literal. That's when you do end up the guy on the corner like yelling at people.
And some of the Christianity that you've been exposed to, just because of where and when you live, has an attitude about the Bible that I don't know is even historically people's attitude of the Bible. I mean, a large portion of Christianity today, at least the Christians that I'm around, think that you have to take the Bible literally, that you have to think it's perfect. Any Bible scholar will tell you, hey, there have been edits that were made during the way. There are books that were written with very clear political agendas, because they were written by Jews for Jews with a Jewish message of the time. So none of that bothers me because the lessons that I find from it, they translate into something that when I come in contact with it, it just feels completely true. But I don't think you have to read it that crazy way because I think that's crazy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you do that, also you exclude yourself from science, actual like knowledge and reasoning.
Yeah.
I mean,
or your own experience.
There's certain things in the Bible that, like, as an educated person, you would look at it and you have to decide, like, okay, like, does this make sense or does this not?
Like they wrote it like they probably wrote what they actually like thought, like they thought was.
They
true.
were doing the best they could, right. And I think God is able to use that and work around it and work with it. But yeah. And I do think though the only time where I think it's silly for people to say, it does seem silly to me where people are like, I don't believe that actually happened because somehow I believe in God, but I don't believe God was capable of that. That seems weird to me. Like, if you believe in God, it doesn't make sense to believe in him but not believe he's capable of doing anything in the world. So it's like, I can understand if people are like, I just don't see a historical record of this, so I don't think it actually happened. I think it's just a story. But for people to be like, oh no, there's no way that the creator of the universe could cause a global flood. But he made everything by speaking, so he can probably...
Well, I mean, you feel bad for stepping on an anthill. I don't. That's the way I think God, could view us. I mean, it's not much for him to wipe us out. Yeah.
I don't see it being a problem for him, but I can understand if people are like, there would be more evidence if that actually
Because people will be like, too, oh yeah, you believe in God? Well, what kind of God would like create cancer or cancer for children or whatever? Or like, do you care that ant's been walking around in a circle for 3 days? Like, it's... It's surprising that he cares about us at all, like as far beneath him that we are,
right.
You know? So that he even takes a care in our lives at all, like that's a big thing.
That's why sometimes, then when you come into contact with something in the Bible that just shows or makes you feel like God has just like this amazing like gentleness to him.
Ice cream truck.
Yeah, there's an ice cream truck. The other day, the song that was playing, I wish I could remember what it was now. It was like a random like 80s pop song, but to like ice cream truck music. Yeah, I was like,
truck.
What's going on? Oh, it was pretty funny. Do you have more questions?
No, like the big one was, well, I guess like the differences between your guys is like Church of God Seventh Day, and like when I saw people like they like I didn't know like what exactly the name of like what you guys were. I just knew it was Seventh Day and it wasn't like Adventist, right?
Yeah.
Like so like, they were like, oh, like that, like no. I was like, they do the Saturday thing.
What did we want to change it to?
What?
Remember they were talking about changing the name of our local church.
But they weren't going to take CoG7.
I know, but I had an idea for it.
Oh, I don't remember what it was. Well, I think what they were thinking of was Restoration Church of God.
Yeah, they were, but I had a better idea.
I don't remember. I don't know what it was.
It was pretty good, though.
Oh, my goodness. It's probably
Anyway.
pretty inappropriate.
That was just learning like what you guys like do
we're waiting
than other like I guess like mainstream Christianity.
The question about does God still talk to people? It's not like I don't understand that this is super legit. Like being like, if he exists, he doesn't seem to want to talk to you guys very much. I'm with you on that. You know? Like,
well, you know, like I was just curious on like what it would take for somebody for like you to believe that he talked to somebody. Like say like
that would be pretty drastic. If somebody
Right.
came up to me and told, because I've heard people say things similar to that before. Like we went to that private school, you know, so we went to Springvale, and there were like different girls that would like come up to guys and say things like, "Oh, like God told me that like we're gonna get married," and you'd be like, "Haha, no, we're not."
yeah.
You know?
that didn't happen while we were there, but that did happen like 2 years ago. But I think they got married.
I've heard of it happening a few times.
So I mean like that's some pretty good proof right there. Like,
Pretty good proof.
I'm almost there. Like I'm almost.
Oh my god.
I mean, if you're gonna marry somebody because they said like,
Well, you know, that's why too. Like, I'm never gonna talk to you about things that I think God is trying to teach me, because it's like, well, it seems almost insulting to both of us to try to have those conversations seriously, because we're not even on the same page about what, you know, whether we believe he even, you know, you're gonna be like, oh, Alicia, that's your own subconscious, and
What do we
you
believe
shouldn't
that's
trust
different,
it.
though?
What?
That's different than everybody else.
Heaven and hell, Sabbath, pagan holidays.
I mean, a lot of the things that we believe that
Trinity.
are different are like really minor, that don't really
Yeah.
matter that much to anyone but
Except
us.
for, the people in our church take
Yeah.
it very seriously.
Like, for example, Easter, okay? The whole world believes Jesus rose on Sunday. We don't.
Yeah.
Because, what were they, counting down the days, and it ended up being like
Well,
three
they think-
partial days or
Don't
something.
they think he died on Good Friday and rose Easter
Yeah,
Sunday
anyway,
morning?
Jesus, before he died, pretty much said that the way you'll know I'm the Messiah is that I'm going to be dead for 3 days, and then I'm going to come back.
Kind of.
Kind of.
I don't... You know, we read the Bible in English, so sometimes it makes... And people forget that all the time. They forget that they're reading a translation
So then
of a
when
translation.
he died on a Friday and he comes back on a Sunday
morning.
everybody's like, huh.
Because, see...
yeah, right.
You know?
At least in English, sometimes he says, I'll be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights, but there are also a whole bunch of places, at least in English, where he says, I'm going to rise on the third day. And the third day isn't necessarily the same thing as 3 days and 3 nights, so I can understand that.
So anyway, we don't believe he died on a Friday. We don't believe he rose on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm. And we like to fight a lot,
But the days are the only thing that's different.
It's
So
a
like
fight
I
a
said,
lot.
it's kind of doesn't really matter a whole lot.
Right.
Except for to some people it does, because they like to
Yeah.
fight a lot.
They like to fight a lot.
Do you remember there was one time, I don't remember what we were talking about, there was one time that we were talking to Bay City, and you were explaining something science-y to me, and I remember you were explaining like some debate that like goes on like with a lot of like I don't know, physicist or something. And I remember it made me laugh because I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, we had the same argument at church, Josh, but when we argue about it, we say we're arguing about the Trinity.
The Trinity.
Yeah, but I forget what it was. You know, once I watched a show, it was like a Nova or something about dark matter.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was like, it sounds like the presence of God to me.
Well, that's a big thing, like what a lot of people attribute that to is everything that we don't know or like can't discover. Like there's an energy out there, and it's like right now, like as far as like the gravity in the universe, like pulling us around, like pulling us apart and whatnot, like we can measure it, like we can like feel it out and like see it working, but we don't know where it's coming from. It's not like a mass. It's not from like a proton, neutron, electron, anything like that. Like, and that's like 85% of the gravity out there. We don't know where it comes from.
The majority of
it. And like, in a lot of people, like the common saying is like that's where like God comes into play, or like, you know, any of your like they call like supernatural deity. We just don't know what it is yet, and we have no idea like what it could be that's out there. Like between like they call it like dark matter and dark energy. Well, like Neil Tyson, he always says you can call it whatever you want. You can call it Fred or Bill, like because it doesn't matter because we have no idea. It could be a Fred out there like pulling us away. But yeah, that's a lot of people like will like fill in the blank with that. And if God would be like a fifth dimensional creature or being, like I could see that being possible. Like I don't know how exactly the interactions work, like interdimensionally like that, but you know, like I've seen enough like theories where like and like research about it that like that's very possible. Is that like a being higher than us can literally just like toy with us how we would with like things like Matchbox cars. Like they can just drive us around and make us go wherever we want. Like you know, and then build a Lego town for us to get stuck in. Like it doesn't really matter. Like that's how like I mean that seems like the power of like God for this, like is that like that's what he can do. Like does he do that? No. Like he grew up and maybe that's what he did. Maybe he was a little God at the time, a toddler, and now he grew up and he just doesn't care.
I love that part of, have you ever seen Groundhog's Day?
Yeah.
I love that part in the diner where he like says, you know, he starts saying everything that's going to happen. And he was like, maybe God isn't eternal. Maybe just knows everything because he's been around so long.
Right?
I like that part.
Maybe he got bored with like this toy box that's Earth and now he's just somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
You know, and it's like one of the episodes, like I was trying to explain that like I don't have a faith problem, but sometimes I have like a belief problem. It's not as if there aren't times where I'm like, how could God be real when he's not evident? Like, of course I think those things. It's just that sooner or later I hit a roadblock where it's like this. Okay, do you believe that all morals are made up and subjective, or do you think there is an objective right and wrong?
Like I believe like morals are subjective. It's based on like a person's view, because what I believe is like moral and not like is different from other, obviously probably everybody else. Like, you know, everybody has like their lines, but I think it's just your own like perception of your own reality, like what you see with your senses, like what you see is right and what you see is wrong. Because I believe it's like not moral to kill anybody for any reason whatsoever, but somebody else would think like, hey, it is moral to, you know, like end this like being's life, like this another human being's life or something like that. I mean, it's just what people believe is right. I think it's always subjective in that way, like. Because
I'm constantly amazed by how good so many people are without believing that they're accountable to anything.
Yeah.
Because I have to say that, like, being grounded in the idea that, like, I am accountable to God and that I am accountable to other humans because God will hold me accountable for how I treat. That is the only reason I think it's wrong to not just be completely selfish and do whatever I want to get myself whatever.
That's why you scare the crap out of people.
That's
why people are afraid of Christians.
But it's like
it's true.
Maybe I'm just not as good of a person as other people, but it's like when I ride my train of thought all the way around, I come to a point where I'm like, you know, even if I have a hard time believing in God as a person, I always come back to the point where I'm like, no, I can feel, and so it's just feelings. I can feel that love is better than hatred. I can just tell that that's true. I can feel that, you know, mercy is greater than justice. Like, those are things that, like, those are the things that I just I come back to, and I'm like, I feel no reason to deny this. Like, and that always leads me back to like, well, if I believe in these things, then it leads me on to like a belief in like the actual person of God. And then when I'm like, oh my gosh, I believe in God, like it's like a revelation again. And then sooner or later I'm like, yeah, but I can't see him. I don't know if he's real. But then I always come back to, because there are things, whether or not it's like the person God in the Bible, there are things that like, no matter what I think, I never come to the point where I don't believe in those things. And everything I've learned about God promotes those things. You know what I mean? Like humans misunderstand and misuse almost everything in the Bible in one way or another at some point, but there are a few things that they haven't been able to screw up for me. Yep. Okay, you ready for my questions?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, the first one, did we have more fun at the Midland Tim Hortons or the Bay City Tim Hortons?
Midland.
Yeah.
We weren't responsible. Like, we were responsible for things, but we didn't have any of that, like, responsibility on us.
Yeah.
Like, when you worked in Bay City, like, you were responsible for the results of everything that happened. Like, you were, like, whether you were the person performing something or you weren't even there, you were still responsible for what happened. And so there was always, like, a hesitation with, you know, not doing our jobs. I mean,
enough of a hesitation.
We did not do our jobs enough. Like, we definitely... I mean,
I see what you're saying.
I still have videos and pictures of us there.
You still have some of the videos?
I have a picture of, like, that you took of me and Andy sleeping underneath all the stuff. And, like, you were excited about it. My boss came and found us sleeping in the hallway, like, hiding underneath, like, all this, like, dry stock area at Tim Hortons. And she said that she got her camera and took pictures of us and narrated and didn't wake us up, just sent us text messages. And then when we woke up, well, we're both still getting paid by her, she sent us, she's like, hey, go check your phones. Like, how often do, like, you get to sleep at work? Your boss then tells you to go check your phone when you
You're not allowed to
wake
tell.
up.
You're not allowed to tell any more stories about me.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Do you think that religion creates, like, a distance between us as friends that can't be bridged? Do you ever feel like that?
I don't think it created a distance, or like it exists, and maybe it's like doesn't pave like the smoothest road for us. But I also think that neither of us really care a whole lot. Maybe you care more than I do. Maybe because like maybe there's like a soft spot like in your heart that's like, I wish he would just, you know, like embrace it, or like
no,
you know, like
sort of, but not really.
Like,
no, just because like.
What do you think of that, Gabe? What do you think of like? I think that like Alicia like really like not. It's not like a huge part. It's not like all she ever thinks about.
No, there is definitely a soft spot.
But I think there's like a part of her that just like wants to like bring me in and get on the bandwagon with.
No, but that's the part where you're wrong. I don't want you to just get on the bandwagon.
You want me to come to the bandwagon on my own?
No, I don't give a shit about the bandwagon. I hope because I feel like it makes my life better, and because I do think that he's real, I hope that sooner or later God will present you with enough evidence to where you can believe in him. I don't really care how he leads you to believe in him. If you ended up believing him in a completely different way than I do, it's between you and him, if that makes any sense to you. It's not like I'm like, oh, I just want Rossi to come to church. I don't care if you ever go to, I don't really care whether I go to church or not, but I do think that I think God is real, and so I want everyone that I care about to benefit from his existence in ways that I think I do.
I don't know if I feel like the opposite way of that. Like if I want you guys to come and be like, disown your God or anything like that, I don't feel, I mean, maybe like a slight part of me is like, okay, like, you know, like to be like very blunt and rude, like, oh, don't believe in that crap doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, but I also have always been like under the impression that like, you know, like if it works for you, like if that's what you like to do and like to be, like that's all right. Like I'm always interested in it. Like I don't 100% say like God doesn't exist or like any God doesn't exist or anything like that. I've always said like I don't like see it in my.
You just don't have a reason.
I don't have a
why
reason
would you believe in it
believe
without?
I guess like, you know, like I could be wrong. I don't think I am. I think I'm right, but like I don't have like evidence to prove myself right either.
So one time I'm talking to Rossi and about me being a Christian, him not, And I was like, no, but it's okay. It's okay that we think different things because we respect each other. And it made me laugh really hard because you were like, I don't think we respect each other. You were like, I just think we both know that the disrespect isn't insulting. And I was like, yeah. Okay,
That's
listen.
fair.
Which of these three makes you disrespect my opinion the most, okay?
Disrespect.
My religion, my gender, or just my own personal retardation, like my own personality? Which one makes you have the least respect for my opinions?
Oh, like definitely the last one. Like,
It's just me.
Like I mean, if each opinion is their own like their own like source, their own entity, I guess. Like it doesn't matter whether it's opinion about Christianity. I mean, opinions are opinions. It's just what's the content of that opinion. Like, what do you have to say? Like, so basically,
every
when you
time
come
I
up with
say
a really
something-
dumb idea or a really dumb opinion or something like some bizarre, stupid thought, while I do really enjoy it, it may also like knock you down a peg or two.
So each time I come to you with a different stupid idea, you disrespect it for its own reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this one's stupid because you're a woman and you're being a stupid woman, and this one's stupid because you're a Christian.
I was gonna say I picked the last two.
Oh, wait, what order were they in?
The Christianity one
Religion,
was first.
Gender,
Oh,
retardation.
okay. Do you think either or both of our beliefs actually make our friendship better, or do you think it's absolutely like really doesn't?
I think it makes like I think in other ways, yeah, it kind of can build it up because we don't like. I don't take offense to anything that most people say to me. Like
Me
most of the time,
neither.
I don't really get offended. So therefore, like we can talk about that. Even if you believe in something, and I say it's ridiculous, and you can even think it's ridiculous, but you can still believe in it, like. You still laugh at it, and then, of course, like that makes me
Well,
like.
sometimes
think
you
it's
post super snarky comments about God is never mad at us if we live with Him in our hearts.
I mean, that's probably
But
a
it
quote
was
from
funny,
somewhere.
so-
Wait, where?
Yeah, but I
I
do stuff like
saved.
that right in church.
Hmm?
I said I do stuff like that right in church.
Well,
even
we
like we
both
don't
do.
have a big deal. Like what? Okay,
No,
my
neither one of
uncle
us
was
is
giving a
listening.
sermon. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago? Maybe?
2 weeks ago.
And what was he saying? He was saying something about like he's like the Bible. He's like we can't just like look at it with like historical. Somehow
He
put
was
it
saying
with
something
history.
about like sometimes people just take
Oh.
stuff out of context and like,
He was saying sometimes we can learn things from fictional books. And I said, yeah, like the Bible. And I think her and I were the only ones back there laughing. We try not to let the rest of the church hear, but but it's like,
Like,
yeah,
it's
that,
still
that is
funny,
the way
like,
other
sure,
people
like-
look at us, yeah.
Okay, I gotta read these, see which one's good. Have you heard me talk about any subjects on the podcast that you feel like I never would actually brought up to you in person?
No.
No.
I don't know if they're like if you have maybe you have a pocket of thoughts or subjects. You're like I'm never talking about this around Rossi, but like I also feel that like I feel like if I asked about any of that, like
Yeah, I definitely
you would just like talk.
I'm
about
usually
it.
just not trying to be like a real weird, like I really honestly am not trying to convert you. So it's like sometimes like not so much with, well, a little bit with you, but a lot of times with my non-Christian friends until they know me really well, I actually try not to talk about Christianity.
You
'Cause
don't.
Well, I'm always afraid that as soon as I do, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she's trying to convert me. And I'm like, I'm afraid they won't believe me.
No,
But I'm like,
yeah, we
no,
don't-
I'm not trying to do that.
We don't ever really want to be those people that like push stuff on
The
people.
only time you guys have ever like talked about something, whether like it actually affected like an action, like Alicia told me that she fasts on Wednesdays, and then she told me it was like a religious reason, like why she does it. It's not a dieting reason or anything. She's like, I do it because of this, and then like, or like or if I ask about something, or like there's a specific like event that happened at your guys' church or anything like that, but you guys never like preach or try to teach me anything, like as far as like like oh you never tell me what to do based on religion, like you're like, hey, you should do this because you should do this.
makes
like you
sense,
should do
or
this
it's gonna
because
benefit
it's in
you
the
in the
Bible.
long
Yeah,
run,
right.
or-
Like you
yeah.
guys have never like preached to me, or I've never seen you preach to anybody else. But
Have there?
I mean, it'd have to be certain situations,
right,
like, like maybe you shouldn't be killing people. It's not a good idea. Like you might want to rethink the way you're living your life right now.
Right.
Like maybe you should quit worshiping Satan. Like I think it might get you into trouble. Yeah. Are there any like preconceived ideas that you had about like what Christians believe that like by knowing more Christians you've figured out either like, oh no, that's not what they believe, or oh, some crazy Christians believe that, but now I know that the rest of the Christians also agree with me that those ones are crazy.
Because like when growing up, I didn't grow up around like religion at all anymore. Like my dad removed himself kind of from a lot of like our Italian Catholic family, and then my mom's family was never like a church going family. And so like I only got to see basically like extremes of Christianity, right? Like newsreels and highlights, you know, like there's these church groups do these things or whatever. But yeah, but like the specific things you hear about are things like Westboro Baptist Church or like the stupid like evangelicals. I mean, maybe not that stupid, but like, you know, on the TV, like on Channel 19, you know, they have their huge things where they knock the power of God into you and it knocks you over on stage. And you hear about those things and you see about this because those are the stories that people talk about. Like they never talk about like, I guess, everyday like Christian life, probably because it's not that interesting to those. So like growing up like, or like learning more about it, like, you know, even going to churches and meeting people who are Christian, and like I realized like the word like cherry picking the Bible is something that like everybody does, and it's not as hostile or dirty as what it sounds. Like it's actually like, to me, I think it's smart. Like, you know, like you pick and choose like what you want to believe in it or what you want to follow and what you don't. I mean, it's a lot of people like look down on that. Like when I say like, yeah, like, you know, like, oh, you're just like cherry picking the Bible here or something like that. You're only believing what you want to believe out of it, or take what you want to take out of it. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all. But because then otherwise you're just, like I said, taking the whole thing literally. Like you're just trying to like use it as your like only rule book.
Yeah.
But I guess people are a lot more like open about it, like open to like interpretation, I guess, than what I thought. Like I always thought like, oh, well, it says this in the Bible. You can't do that because you are define yourself as a Christian.
Well, our church in general pretty much thinks everything's up for debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're also pretty adamant about
the things that
oh yeah, they'll tell you you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's what it says in the Bible.
Yeah.
Most people like atheists, like I mean like the like the extreme side of like us is that like, you know, like you see like the memes and the t-shirts like I'm an atheist, debate me, or like do things like that. And it's, I feel that like both sides get, if you're not part of Christianity, I feel like those who aren't part of it give it like a bad rap because of people like Westboro Baptist Church or the extremes. And I think that
the angry atheists will calm down more and more as the culture gets less and less preferential to Christians? Do you think that once the culture is a little more balanced to where Christians don't have to run into things, that atheists will get less angry? The angry
atheists, or like the like the hyper Christians, or whatever you want to like categorize them as, I think those like groups
you can call them angry too.
Well, will be like smaller. Like maybe it makes up like 10% of Christianity are like angry Christians, you know, and like 80% of atheists are angry atheists or whatever. But I believe that percentage is going to get smaller. Like the more that like, I guess the more information comes out there, and it also seems.
I don't. No.
I don't think it'll go away.
They'll find something else to be.
I also think that there's a certain part of like the angry atheist that'll be like, I'm okay now that this is done. Here's my next thing, and they just have an agenda
just
of like a scroll that never ends. Like they're just gonna keep.
It's like the Republicans and Democrats. Like I mean, they'll be fighting about one thing. Don't worry, they'll find something new.
Yeah, every time. And I think that'll always exist. But I think like the extremes will still be there. I think they'll just be smaller. I don't think that makes their that presence any smaller. But I think that like the amount of people in it will be smaller. I think. With the more like exposure, because you see how crazy like now like, you know, like things like the Westboro Baptist Church are. I'm sorry, Westboro Baptist Church.
No, you don't have to apologize to them. They're bad people.
Well, they don't think they're. Well, maybe some of them actually do, but they don't think they're bad people. They think
but I do.
Right.
If it helps in our church when people start getting crazy, we'll be like, oh no. Oh, you'll be like sitting in the back, and you'll just be like, "Oh no, she's gonna talk."
Well, some of us go like that, and some of us go like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it's good." Yeah.
If you filmed your church, would you guys like be allowed to do that? Are you guys allowed to film?
What do you mean?
He does film.
He films the sermons.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just on the one that I just posted today, I was telling about how like when our worship service, when the music would get like really like off off like rhythm and stuff. Sometimes me and Gabe would film it so we could laugh at it later.
We've had people in the church before that will like line up after the sermon,
To argue.
and then the pastor will he'll like come down from where he was talking, and they'll be like, okay, now I'm going to tell you all the ways you're wrong. And like try to educate him on, this guy that like devotes his whole life to studying this, and okay, let me educate you on just why you're wrong.
Do you guys sing in church?
Well,
She
I
does.
sing.
Yeah.
The congregation sings.
I don't
but,
sing unless it's 80s hairband music.
But do you stand up? Like, because, okay, so like in general, in church, like you stand up to part of like singing and they doesn't.
Most of the time. Our church, I mean, there are some denominations like Catholic and Lutheran where it's called liturgy. Like, what you're going to do during the service is already, like, there's a lot of like standard procedure type
It's all
stuff.
just kind of tradition.
Yeah, and some of that probably is actually useful, just like, rituals can be useful. But our church isn't like that. It's pretty casual. So yeah, we do sing, but how much we sing or if we stand up or not, it usually just depends on if the person up front says like, okay, let's stand, then you're not rude, you stand up. But
that was the worst part for me, like going to a church is like, let's stand up and sing, and like I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of standing up, or singing or God, and I don't know it. I don't know any of these songs. So here I have to participate in all the I'm expected to participate in all this stuff that I don't know anything about.
Yeah,
it's like
it's somewhat like that for me as well, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll do like what they call altar calls, and they'll be like, if you feel like the Holy Spirit compelling you to come up front, come up front to the stage and like pray. So like all these people start getting up front and walking up front, and like pretty soon I'm like the one person sitting in the back, like, well, I'm not going.
I'm not compelled right now.
Like,
So
yeah.
like when you were talking earlier about the services where they'll have like miraculous healings, where they'll put like their hand on somebody, the spirit will overtake them, and they'll go in a trance. I was on a podcast, I heard about this British, I think he's like an illusionist and a performer, and since he's not well known in America, he came over to do this special in America where he hosted this like church revival service, and just through using psychology and just our own, the whole point of it was he was saying, these healings, they are kind of real, but it's people's own body chemistry from their emotions that's making them feel this relief from the pain. And so, he was doing it as just kind of a way to like disprove that, it's like the Holy Spirit doing these things and stuff. But when I heard it, I thought it doesn't bother me if that's what it is. I think that can also be an important function.
It's in other religions too. I mean, look at what happens to some African tribes. I mean, they do all kinds of crazy
I think for a lot of people, especially because our society is so, you just kind of close yourself off. You don't express a lot of emotion.
The more spiritualism and stuff there is, people are getting more and more involved with all of that.
But I'm just
and that's not just Christianity, that's just in general. I mean, meditation and what all else.
With the way our culture expects you to behave a certain way and not show a lot of emotion, I think for a lot of people, that worship service where you actually get to stand up and sing and express some emotion, a lot of people have a big endorphin rush, and I think that's a good thing about church, because for a lot of people, I feel like that's the only time during the week actually get to express a lot of emotion. And so yeah, maybe it seems a little bit creepy to you that they're focusing that emotion towards a God that you think doesn't exist.
I don't know if that's creepy to me. I just didn't like doing it myself. Like that, like, go ahead, sing.
Well, probably because you're like me.
Yeah,
you're sitting back there and they're like, yeah, do this, and you're like, I don't feel like I should.
That's not me. Like thanks though. Like here's a dish that I know you don't like. Eat it.
Well, I've always had that same.
And that's like, I don't know. That was just me. Like, I guess more so just like asking if you guys sang at church like enough or like every.
You just answered it.
Oh, dang it! Hello.
Can't hang up now.
Hi, babies.
So, I hated singing in church. Like now I wouldn't mind it as much, but I don't know. When I lived in Bay City, I lived next to like a Methodist church, and it was a black lady Methodist church with a huge choir, and I thought that was awesome. Like I would like every like Sunday, I'd listen to him sing, and like me, I mean, I was like, that's really cool, like the whole like idea of it, but I don't know. I never wanted to be part of it, like.
It's not.
I mean, I was already there, like not participating really, anyways, because I wasn't like a churchgoer, and so I was just kind of like there because I happen to be there. And so, like, I don't know, I never wanted to participate in a lot of things. And there's something that, like, everybody stand up and we're going to sing these 3 songs.
See, where she likes the emotional aspect of it, I hate that in church. Because I'm not a big emotional person in general. So when people start, like, getting on that and, like, making it, like, a focus and stuff, I all of a sudden feel excluded. Like, I'm not part of it. I don't like it. You think I don't.
It's just funny to be like, I don't have feelings. I don't like them. That's funny.
Well, I have feelings, just not...
Mostly anger, a little bit of annoyance.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah. I picture your happy as like the absence of anger.
I mean, that's not too bad.
I picture my own happiness as the absence of like discomfort. I mean, that's like 80% of my happiness is just not having anything that's making me
I always
unhappy.
think that like 90% of your life is finding a way to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to be happy.
Do you think that, like, from your perspective, and maybe not just Church of God, do you think that Christianity is, like, growing and becoming more present in, like, our society or culture?
No.
Do you think it's, like, shrinking then?
I don't even know if I'd use the word shrinking. The best way I could put it is that Christians for a long time have been taught.
Sorry, I'm going to bash millennials in a little bit.
Okay.
'Cause you just did your millennial thing, and I don't like them.
Christians for a long time have pretty much had the top spot in the culture. And so part of the reason why Christians are so angry right now is that they're losing that strong foothold in the culture. And instead of recognizing that this is just a cultural shift and we're losing like extra rights, they feel like people are taking their rights away. Where it's like, you know, Christians have we've been treated better than everybody else for quite a while because we were in control and we were in power, and that we're starting to lose that. And yeah, that probably sucks for us, but it's not the same thing as being oppressed. And they feel like they're being oppressed when really they're just losing a little bit of their advantage. So
I think is that for years and years you went to church because mom wanted you to go to church. All right, this happened in the U.S.
Right, if you were 5 years old, are you going to choose to go to church?
Well, right. Even as an adult, well, why did we go? Well, because like, my grandma's going to be upset if we don't go to church. You know? So you still went to church, right? Or if you're a man, like you're working to support your family. Why? Like you're killing yourself in this factory, and you know it, but you're doing it for your family, right? Because that's just the way things are. Well, millennials, they're spoiled little brats. They care about themselves, and they're like, no, you know what? I'm going to do what makes me happy. So it's not that like there's less Christians or less Christianity and this and that. It's just that there's more people being like, no, I'm not going to go. Like, you can't make me go. I don't care. I'm not going to do it.
So there aren't any less people who are actually committed to it. It's just that there were never that many people who were actually committed to it. A lot of people were just playing along.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of people like playing along with it because I mean, it's not a very good reference, but you see a lot of like reading a lot of books and TV shows and movies that people are just going and attending these services just because they want to, or they do it for somebody else. Like you go because grandma expects us to be there. You go because your wife expects you to be there.
Yeah.
Like things like that. And so, and now like I guess you're kind of right. I see a lot of people like even like couples now, like my friends my age and stuff, that like one person will go to church and the other person won't because they just don't do it.
Yeah, and I think that's just the way today's generation is. They're going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways that's good, in some ways that's bad. Me and Lark we just put a video up about millennials, and so the reason we had that episode is because so many millennials aren't going to church now. Churches are like obsessed with millennials because they're trying to figure out like how do we get them back?
That's a
How do
whole
we get
market
them back?
that that you don't have. At
But
all,
like
so.
my stance is, you know what? Anybody who doesn't actually want to be in church is just gonna hurt the productivity of the church. So if somebody really doesn't want to be there, why are you fighting so hard to get them to come when they don't actually believe it?
A lot of churches, I mean, maybe it is the bigger churches also fighting it, but like, don't a lot of smaller churches have like financial issues right now though too? Like from my experience, like the one church is like the Swenson's church that I know quite a bit about. Like they've always like 20 years ago, they weren't having nearly the financial issues they have now, but like now that they're running into that more, and a lot of
That
smaller
probably also
churches
has a lot
seem
to do
they're
just with
combining churches
I'd
because
say
they can't
yes
afford
and
to have
no.
two
A
churches
lot of
open.
people don't know how to manage money, and when you get
That's
people
probably
in
true, too.
positions, I'm on the church board, all right? I'm involved with managing the money, and I say a lot of, are you crazy? We're not doing that.
Well, because a
You
lot
know,
of times
so-
the people who are in charge of church, they get that position because they have some like spiritual attribute to them that makes them like good when it comes to understanding God and understanding the Bible. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with understanding money.
Right.
Yeah, so if you just like take this person who has no background in business and like doesn't know anything about it, like, but here's the money, do you know, make good choices.
And that's something that like I was like, curious about, because what I see like 15 years ago, even compared to now, is there's a lot of like church events. Like, hey, this church is hosting this like event and this like fundraiser or anything like that and going on. And I see that a lot less now. And especially even now, like my job puts me out into the community and like reaching out even to churches to help them host fundraisers and, you know, like be part of, put up like things like sporting events or little mini carnivals and stuff like that. And like, it seems like a lot of churches don't do that as much as what I saw when I was younger. Like, I don't like actually know, but that's just the way like I like perceive it and see it.
I think churches also have figured out that it's just not as effective anymore.
That might be true. Like you take like community events and
like
things
we
like
figured
that.
out that it's not actually gonna change anything.
Things have changed a lot too. I mean, like things that would have been exciting for people our age 20 years ago are just not the same anymore. I mean, like, you've got to go outside to do
right, like the majority of things that happened over 20 years ago was like basically like a picnic. You know, like a glorified picnic all the time. Like, hey, we're having this get together. Like, you know, this church is doing this thing on Saturday, and there's gonna be food and tables, and you know, kids are gonna run around and maybe some balloons. Like,
if we invited you to something like that, what would you be thinking?
I probably actually like a normal person probably wouldn't really want to go. Like, nah, it's all right. Like, you know, I'm gonna go and not do that on Saturday. I'm going to stay inside or go and do something else. But I would go to something like that.
Well, and in general, social gathering and get-togethers is different than what it was.
Right.
I mean, like, she wants to go and be around all these people. I don't. So, I think there's a lot of people like me now that are just like, nah.
It's easier to not leave your house though now too.
Yeah,
like,
I have to talk to people.
Even compared,
it's a lot more entertaining
from when I was a kid. Like when I was like just things like video games and TV. Like TV was, you had 15 different channels, you know, and that's if you had TV. You know, like even like some people didn't have that, but now like everything is available and everybody
things
has.
changed too. Like when I was a kid, I remember I'd be playing like Mario or something, you know. And my dad would like come inside and see me doing it, and he'd get mad at me.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "You should be outside, playing. Like, what's the matter with you? You know, like you're obsessed with that game. I'm gonna take that game away." My dad plays more Xbox now than anyone I know.
Yeah.
He has something like over 2,000 hours logged on Modern Warfare 3. He had over a full year's worth of work. 8 hours a day playing Modern Warfare 3. And that's the guy that used to yell at me for playing video games. Right, like, and I don't even play anymore.
No, that's...
You go outside and you play on your day.
I go outside and yeah.
You know, and that's something that, like, that probably does, like, take people away from those, like, group outings or group events and stuff like that. Like, you have to have, like, a big event planned in order to get people to show up on things like that. Like, you know, you can't just have, like, a church picnic on Saturday and people are like, well, that's okay, but I have all this other stuff I have like available for me to do, all this other entertainment that sounds way better. You know, like you're like, we're going to go to Cedar Point as a youth church group. Like, okay, that sounds a little bit more fun, but it's not like we're going to have like a fun, just socializing like dinner as a youth church. You're like, that's all right. Like, I'd rather socialize differently.
Unless you're like a teenager and there's going to be girls there.
Yeah. You went to church with girlfriends, you said?
Okay, so like when I
were they like missionary dating you? Like were they trying to like convert you?
Well, actually, okay, so
I could have found a better.
Okay, so when I dated one girl who was a pastor's daughter, and I don't know how that came to be at all. But she was like completely cool with me being like an atheist, but her entire family was not. Like that's the girl who like she got me her sister sent her the text message that's like, read this John passage, like the,
I remember that.
like book of 2 John of 2:22 or whatever.
So
it was.
those scoffers,
Yeah,
right?
no, they call me the Antichrist. Is what it is. It's like, so I'm writing out to you because of something, and it's like he who denies the Christ is the Antichrist, and like they were like talking about me, like that I'm the Antichrist, and like instantly I was like, like prideful of that. I was like, I'm the Antichrist, and they had remember I had that T-shirt too. That my girl. So then my girlfriend at the time, she went and she made me that T-shirt. Like she thought it was funny. Like as well, but she still goes to like she's not like she didn't like branch away from Christianity or anything, like she like thought it was funny, but like I thought that like I don't know, instead of like reaching out to me like her sisters or her dad or anything like that and like trying to talk to me, like they were just like, no, he's bad news.
They were just concerned for their girl.
I don't blame them. I don't hold anything against it. But like
never had a girl's parents like me, and I was in the church. It didn't matter. What?
My phone's going on.
They
I thought you'd have so many more questions.
like I thought I would too, but like after like I watched that first one, that was like the big one when you guys were talking about your differences between like CoG7 and other like things, and that's when I was like, oh, that's a question. Like, and the big one was like the whole like after death thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have a lot of like general like Christianity questions, of course. I always like can come up with something, but most of it's just like trying to pick at something, and I don't think that's not that fun for me anymore. Maybe it was like 10 years ago. I was like, oh, like this and that, but like it's always like I have to like listen to something and like there's something to talk about, and it like okay, I'm interested in that now.
At my last job, my friend Brian Jones kept telling me they had quite a complex because like anytime religion would come up, I'd like have to give him tons of disclaimers, like I'm not crazy, I'm not trying to convert you, like it's okay. And he's like, calm down, like why are you so paranoid? Like I don't think you're stupid. It's you do you, it's okay. You are part of the reason why I have such a complex.
Oh really?
There was like one time just every time I ran into something with you where like you were not understanding where I was coming from, and I could see that where you thought I was coming from, I would be a crazy person if I believed the way you expected me to believe. And there was one time at Tim Hortons where I had gone to the casino, and I came to work and I told you, and you were like, oh, what are they gonna think about that at church? And it like shocked me. I was like, you think I go to church and let people scold me like you think I let, because I suddenly realized if that's how he thinks I let people treat me at church, no wonder he thinks I'm crazy. And that made me want to be like, no, I don't go to church and like report on my sins so that the old women can like smack my knuckles with a ruler.
But some people do.
Some people do.
I mean, like that's the thing though, like that's especially like in Catholicism, that though like the very little bit that I knew of it, like that's kind of a big deal, was like to go and talk about like your sins and what you did wrong and against God, and therefore you can learn how to build from that and like,
I guess
make yourself better.
Just realizing how little people know about it, and then realizing that what people do know about it is like the crazy fringes, did make me very cautious about like talking about it to people, because I'm like, they're gonna misunderstand, they're gonna think I'm a nut. Like
you also like present the very like traditional like woman's role
because
too.
I fit my gender role so well.
Like you truly do. Like
truly
you
do.
never made it like to World War II. Like you're in that pre-World War II like gender role. Like you were never like Rosie Riveter like or anything. And then but that's what you like want to be. That's what you choose to be. And that's not like that's not a bad thing, right? And a lot of people like would see that and be like, that's a bad thing. Like Alicia, don't be oppressed, or don't like. Don't worry about what people think of you.
Yeah, but they all secretly like ask their boyfriends to choke them. So.
What, traditional girls?
No, those feminists.
No, right.
Like, the feminists.
Don't hold me down. Hold me down.
And that's, and that's another extreme right there. Like is like the feminism, right? Like there's extremists that ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah.
Like because I would consider myself a feminist, and that supports just women doing whatever they want to do. Like
one of the things I really would like to get your opinion on, because you know me so well, but it really has nothing to do with Christianity. It's really just like a personal question. We probably should have ended this before we got to the personal question.
Fair. You could cut this last like 40 minutes out.
I probably can.
We
cut some stuff out. Bye.
Because